The year is 452 AD. The Western Roman Empire, once the invincible heart of civilization, stands hollow and trembling. The marble of its cities cracks. The roads that once carried legions now carry refugees. Beyond the Alps, a dark tide gathers. Attila the Hun, the scourge of empires, driving his horsemen across Europe with fire in their wake. When the Huns descend upon northern Italy, the land itself seems to collapse. Aquileia burns until its towers glow like candles in a storm. Adua falls next, its temples ransacked, its citizens scattered into the night. Altinum follows, then Concordia. Behind the roar of hooves comes silence, fields blackened, statues toppled, rivers thick with ash. The survivors wander south, carrying their gods, their children, and the memory of everything lost. At the edge of the Adriatic, they reach a wilderness that seems outside the world, a lagoon, shallow and shining, threaded with reeds and shifting sand. The ground quivers beneath every step, half land, half water. To the desperate, it appears hopeless, but it offers what no fortress on solid earth can promise: safety. No army can cross mud that swallows men whole. So they stay. They lash their rafts together, drive stakes into the sandbanks, and raise huts from driftwood. The air smells of salt and damp decay. Waves slap against the walls at night. Yet for the first time in months, they sleep without fear. The sea becomes their wall, the sky their roof. Here, among the tides, the first Venetians are born. They learn to read the lagoon as one reads a sacred text. They mark the channels by memory, listen for the change in wind that announces danger, watch the moon as if it were a clock. Children grow up half amphibious, running barefoot through tide pools, diving for crabs between ruins. Every day is a negotiation with water. Still, this life cannot last on improvisation. To endure, the settlers must make the impossible ordinary. They must teach the sea to bear weight. The mud beneath them is soft as bread. Even a stone wall would sink. Out of necessity, they invent genius. From the forests of Istria and Dalmatia they fell trees, oak, alder, larch, dense woods that resist rot. The logs are floated across the sea and driven vertically into the lagoon floor with rhythmic blows. The sound of hammering carries for miles, the birth cry of Venice. Thousands of piles vanish beneath the surface, forming a hidden foundation that presses the clay tight. Above them, carpenters lay thick planks, then builders place blocks of white Istrian stone, impervious to salt, patient as time. Beneath every structure that will ever rise here lies that secret forest. Deprived of air, the wood petrifies rather than decays. Minerals from the water creep through its veins until it hardens like marble. Venice is built upon a paradox, a city of wood more durable than stone. Once the ground holds, the city can rise. At first, wooden huts cluster along narrow walkways, then brick replaces timber, arches spread weight, iron pins tie facades together, lime mortar breathes with the moving earth, bending where other cities would break. Fire teaches restraint, walls stay thin, buildings low. Strength here means flexibility. The lagoon becomes both map and master. Canals replace roads, bridges link islands, boats serve as beasts of burden. No wheels, no hoofbeats, only the pulse of oars and the hum of water against hulls. Venice moves to the rhythm of its element. Life adapts. Markets appear on floating platforms. Fishermen trade directly from their boats. Women dry nets on balconies that overlook the sea. Children chase gulls between piles of driftwood. Every day begins with the toll of a bell and ends with the whisper of the tide. The challenge of fresh water forces new invention. Wells cannot pierce salt soil, so engineers dig vast cisterns beneath the squares, lining them with clay and filling them with layers of sand and stone. Rain gathered from rooftops filters slowly until it rests clear in the chambers below. The city learns to drink from the sky. Each island grows a character of its own. San Marco for worship, Rialto for trade, Murano for craft. Bridges multiply, at first rough planks, later graceful arches. The most daring spans the Grand Canal, the Rialto Bridge, first of wood, reborn in marble. 12,000 piles anchor its weight. 10,000 tons of stone curve across water like a permanent rainbow. It is not only infrastructure, it is identity. By the 9th century, the scattered settlements unite under a single spirit. The people elect a leader, the Doge, chosen not for birth but for trust. His palace rises from the sea, its columns delicate yet unyielding, its courtyards open to wind and light. Here, politics learns to balance like architecture, flexible, transparent, strong. Religion sanctifies survival. Churches rise like anchored ships, their domes tiled with gold mosaics that shimmer like sunlight on waves. The story of St. Mark becomes legend, the saint's relics stolen from Alexandria, hidden in barrels of pork to fool customs guards. When they arrive, the people weep. They believe heaven itself has chosen to live among them. The winged lion of St. Mark spreads across banners, walls, and hearts, symbol of courage, intelligence, and freedom. As centuries turn, the city grows richer in skill. Craftsmen perfect glass on Murano, trapping light within crystal. Blacksmiths forge anchors and locks that will hold against storms. Sailors chart new routes through Adriatic currents. Each trade is a prayer of precision. The lagoon hums with activity, a hive that never rests. The very structure of the lagoon is maintained by human will. Dredgers clear silt, carpenters sleeve worn piles, stonecutters reface eroded quays. Maintenance becomes morality. Every Venetian, from noble to fisherman, understands that neglect is death. The Republic's first law is repair. By night, the city transforms. Torches flicker on bridges, lanterns ripple in canals. Their reflections multiply until it seems stars have descended to live upon the water. Music drifts from balconies. Footsteps echo like tides between walls. The line between earth and sky disappears. Foreign travelers arrive and cannot believe what they see, a metropolis without land, defended only by water, yet richer than any walled kingdom. They write of its scent, a mingling of salt, tar, and incense, and of its silence, for even crowds move quietly on stones softened by sea air. One monk records that Venice feels half dream, half discipline. Still, danger lurks in beauty. The lagoon changes daily, sandbanks migrate, floods rise without warning. The people answer not with despair but ritual. When high tide threatens, they lift furniture, seal doors, and wait. When it retreats, they scrub the stones clean. Each gesture, humble or grand, reaffirms the same pact. Live with the water, never against it. The Doge's processions embody that covenant. Every year he sails upon the Bucentoro, a golden barge, to the mouth of the lagoon and casts a ring into the sea, declaring, "We wed thee, O sea, in sign of true and everlasting dominion." The ceremony is not conquest, but marriage. Venice promises fidelity to the element that sustains it. Day by day, the Republic matures. Councils multiply, balancing ambition with caution. Trade expands, furs from the north, silk from the east, wine from the islands. Wealth builds palaces whose facades mix Gothic arches with Byzantine mosaics, each style layered like sediment. Artists learn to paint reflection itself, capturing how color breaks upon water. Within a few generations, the lagoon has become the most improbable city on earth, a place that lives by contradiction. Delicate yet enduring, fluid yet fixed, born of exile yet master of exchange. From the ashes of Rome's empire rises a new civilization, not of legions and land, but of tides and trade. As dawn breaks over the Grand Canal, bells roll through mist, gondoliers shout to one another, and sunlight trembles across marble facades. Beneath it all, the ancient wooden forest holds steady, unseen, unbroken. Venice breathes, shimmering between reflection and reality. A city that should have drowned long ago endures, waiting for its destiny to unfold. Morning rises slowly over the lagoon. Mist curls like breath between domes and bell towers. The city seems to float, suspended between the mirror of water and the pale Italian sky. Fishermen push their boats into the channels, oars dipping in rhythm with the toll of distant bells. The air carries the mixed scent of salt, pitch, and bread baking from unseen courtyards. Life begins again, as it has for centuries. Every motion here is both necessity and art. The gondolier's stroke, the merchant's barter, the mason's measured strike of hammer on stone, all form a choreography repeated across generations. The Venetians do not rush. They move at the tempo of tides, patient, methodical, resilient. Their city, after all, is alive. It must be constantly maintained, coaxed, and persuaded to endure another day. Each canal is an artery, each bridge a bone, each pile beneath the water a hidden muscle. Without care, the organism falters, and so maintenance itself becomes devotion. Crews dredge mud by hand from the smaller channels. Divers check the wooden foundations beneath the quays. When erosion eats at the edges of an island, new piles are driven in, new planks laid, new stones seated. The Venetians repair the world as others might pray. But life in Venice is not only labor. The city glitters with celebration. Festivals fill the calendar, many born from gratitude for survival. The Festa della Senza commemorates the city's marriage to the sea. The Festa del Redentore marks deliverance from plague. On such days, the lagoon blazes with lanterns and fireworks, their reflections multiplying until the sky and water seem to trade places. From afar, Venice appears aflame, a constellation adrift upon the earth. Inside the city's narrow lanes, the atmosphere changes with every turn. A sudden courtyard bursts with sunlight. A hidden chapel glows with candlelight reflected in gold mosaics. In the markets, merchants shout prices across barges. Sacks of pepper and cinnamon scent the air. Bolts of silk gleam like captured sunrise. The clang of blacksmiths mixes with the laughter of children chasing pigeons across St. Mark's Square. Here, beauty is not decoration, it is survival turned to ritual. The same inventiveness that keeps the buildings standing also shapes their art. The glassmakers of Murano discover how to trap color within clarity, crafting goblets so thin they hum when touched. Stone carvers trace lacework into marble, transforming weight into lightness. Painters study how water distorts reflection, and from that distortion, they invent perspective itself. Venice becomes a teacher to the world. Architects come to learn how to build on unsteady ground, merchants to study how to profit without war, artists to see how color behaves on moving light. Every visitor leaves changed. Here, writes one pilgrim, man has made peace with the sea. Yet peace never lasts. The same waters that feed and protect Venice also threaten to consume her. Storms crash through the Adriatic, tides surge higher each decade, and each generation must reimagine its defenses. Wooden stakes rot despite their mineral armor. Salt creeps into mortar. The lagoon silts up, strangling its own channels. The city answers not with surrender, but with invention. Engineers map the currents, building breakwaters and barriers to guide the tide. Entire islands are raised from the mud to act as shields. Over time, a network of invisible defenses encircles the city like a halo. The Venetians understand that their enemy is not the sea, but time itself. The government, too, evolves to meet that enemy. The Doge still reigns, but always watched by councils of nobles, merchants, and craftsmen. Corruption is punished severely. Efficiency is praised as virtue. To govern Venice, one chronicler writes, is to repair her. Civic duty and maintenance become indistinguishable. Religion deepens that same philosophy. The churches, though rooted in faith, are also feats of physics. St. Mark's Basilica, with its 5 domes and a forest of columns, balances on thousands of wooden piles. Every mosaic inside reflects candlelight across curved ceilings, like waves breaking upon stone. Priests call it a miracle. Masons know it is mathematics. Both are right. By the 12th century, Venice has turned from survival to mastery. Its merchants command fleets that stretch across the Mediterranean. Its shipyards at the Arsenale become the greatest industrial complex of the medieval world, a city within a city, echoing with the rhythm of hammers and saws. Here ships are built in an assembly line, centuries before the term is invented. Workers craft hulls, ropes, sails, and weapons with synchronized precision. A single galley can be launched each day. Still, for all its power, the Republic remembers its origins. The lagoon remains its first wall of defense, its final sanctuary. Even the Doge's grand ceremonies acknowledge dependence. Every year he throws a golden ring into the sea, renewing Venice's marriage to its element. The sea answers not in words but in silence, a reminder that dominion is temporary, partnership eternal. At sunset, light pours over the Grand Canal like molten gold. Gondolas glide through the glow, their shadows long upon the rippling surface. Music drifts from open windows, flutes, viols, laughter. The city glows not with arrogance, but with awareness. Every reflection is fleeting, every echo finite, and yet, through care, repetition, and faith, it endures. Beneath the surface, the forest of piles still holds, millions of wooden trunks driven into the earth, each one planted by anonymous hands 1,000 years ago. Divers who descend today find them intact, blackened by time, but solid as stone. The lagoon's mud has embalmed them like relics. They are the city's roots, the silent testament of human defiance. As night falls, Venice reveals another truth. From above, its pattern of canals forms a labyrinth resembling a human brain, arteries, veins, synapses. It is as if thought itself has taken physical form. The city is an idea made visible, the triumph of intellect over chaos, cooperation over collapse. Visitors wander its silent alleys, listening to the lapping of water against ancient walls. Somewhere a bell tolls, somewhere else an oar dips once, twice, then fades. They realize that Venice is not merely a city, but an illusion maintained through collective belief. Every citizen contributes to that illusion, renewing it daily through labor, ritual, and love. As the first millennium closes, the Republic stands unmatched. It has survived invasion, flood, and famine. It governs itself without kings, trades without conquest, and worships without fear. Its flag, the Golden Lion of St. Mark, flies from masts across the sea. Yet for all its strength, Venice remains humble before its origins. Beneath the Doge's palace, beneath the domes and mosaics, lies the same mud that once sheltered desperate refugees. That memory shapes the Venetian soul. To live here is to remember fragility. To build here is to defy it. Each stone laid is an act of hope, each restoration a declaration of continuity. Venice teaches that civilization is not a monument, but a motion, a ceaseless effort to keep the impossible alive. When dawn returns, the lagoon shimmers like a mirror of eternity. The bells of St. Mark's cry out across the water, echoing from Murano to the Lido. Fishermen set sail, merchants open shutters, and the world begins again. The city that should not exist wakes once more, luminous and unbroken. Venice endures, not because it conquers, but because it understands. It listens to the rhythm of the sea and answers with its own heartbeat. It remembers that beauty is born from struggle, that permanence is an illusion sustained by care, and that the most fragile things can, with devotion, last forever. By the time Venice had taught its houses to float and its bridges to bind islands, another ambition took shape: to make the sea itself a road and a revenue. Geography offered both invitation and exam. The lagoon guarded the city like a moat, but outside its jigsaw of sandbars lay open routes to Byzantium, to Alexandria, to the straits that led toward the Black Sea. If the founders learned tides to survive, their heirs would learn winds to prosper. Trade became doctrine. At the arsenal, the arsenale, the city invented an industry before the word existed, an integrated shipyard that ate timber and iron at one gate and launched galleys ready for convoy at the other. Kilns fired pitch, forges sang, rope walks laid cables longer than streets, warehouses measured stores and seasons. What elsewhere was craft in separate shops became here a choreography. Hulls slid from ways in sequence, oars, sails, and armaments arrived in timed waves, in years of danger. Convoyed by armed galleys, Venetian traders moved beneath a winged lion that meant contracts would be honored and pirates pursued. They carried glass beads that glowed like planets, dyes that bloomed onto cloth, paper that remembered as surely as stone remembers weight. They returned with pepper that could mask winter's old meat, cinnamon that turned kitchens into theaters, sugar that dazzled like snow. Bills of exchange crossed desks faster than ships crossed horizons. Risk was priced, losses pooled, fought. Government mirrored the city's hydraulics, valves and channels to prevent floods of passion. The great council swelled with families who had proved their stake in the Commonwealth. Smaller councils cross-checked proposals. Magistracies specialized like organs. At the apex stood the Doge, robed and gilded, an actor bound by script. His power was ceremony stewarded by law. His grandeur existed to domesticate ambition. Venice had no need for a king when it possessed a system that could outlive kings. Religion supplied pageantry and cohesion. Processions wound over bridges like jeweled serpents. Bells choreographed the days. Relics bound the city to a story older than siege and salt. St. Mark's Basilica, crusted with mosaics like a planet seated with suns, told in tesserae the tale Venice told itself. Chosen, clever, cosmopolitan, afloat by providence and design. Outside, Piazza San Marco spread like a stage, at once court, market, parade ground, and mirror of weather, where clouds rehearsed across P. None of this pomp obscured the constant engineering underneath. Water had to be sweet, waste had to be moved, the seabed had to be urged to cooperate. The cisterns under Campi, lined with clay and layered with sand, caught rain through corner grates and from roof gutters, purified it, and presented it at elegant wellheads. Over 600 public wells studded the city like stone flowers. Meanwhile, an underworld of drains and culverts learned to enlist the tide. When the lagoon inhaled, brine rushed up too. Industry adapted to watery constraints. Tanneries sought corners where currents could carry tainted wash. Dye works fed color to canals only on certain phases. Kilns burned on Murano where flame could rage without endangering the dense wooden heart of the city. Murano glass became an alphabet of light. Cristallo clear as an idea, Latimo milky as morning, aventurine flecked with copper galaxies. Chandeliers descended like frozen fireworks. Mirrors returned rooms twice their size. Lenses bent knowledge. Culture arrived as both residue and reward. Merchants commissioned chapels and canvases to launder risk into memory. Guilds endowed altarpieces that advertised skill in paint as sure. Painters studied reflection until they could bottle it. Schools of music trained orphan girls, whose choruses made even skeptics weep. Printers set movable type that multiplied thought. A city born from logistics gave Europe a grammar for beauty. But supremacy, like a spring tide, has a turning. The Portuguese rounded Africa and found a sea road to spices. Spain reached west into continents that reshaped maps. Trade lines that once braided through the Mediterranean loosened and slid into oceans Venice could not fence. The Republic, old in wisdom, pivoted toward finance, diplomacy, and spectacle. Carnival, with masks that democratized faces, turned anonymity into theater. Even in reinvention, the ancient chores remained. Floodwaters, the aqua alta, pressed more often over thresholds. Timber platforms settled by millimeters each decade. Silt choked the inlets, unless cut. Venice responded with the only answer it has ever trusted: maintenance as a civic religion. Crews dredged, masons repointed, carpenters sleeved tired piles, magistrates measured, recorded, argued, agreed. The city's survival depended not on heroics, but on habits, on the liturgy of small, repeated care. Listen to a winter storm from the Mullo. The lagoon goes slate, wind combs the water cross-grain, bells move from song to semaphore. Yet even then, the choreography holds. Boats moor where eddies grant mercy. Porticos gather the wet and the worried. Lanterns draw small circles of certainty inside the blur. Morning returns, and with it the stubborn routine. Market scales zeroed, oars waxed, invoices sanded dry. Resilience here is simply continuity performed. Science eventually gave new names to old intuitions. Engineers modeled subsidence and load paths that medieval masons sensed with their hands. Chemists analyzed the mineralization of piles that carpenters called blessing. Hydrologists mapped how tides breathe through the lagoon's throat at the inlets, how barrier islands guard the city the way eyelids guard sight. From these studies came modern works, gates that can rise to stay the worst surges, levees tuned to seasons, born from the same impulse as the Fust. And still the economy of lightness governs life. Kitchens favor small, bright rooms. Furniture perches on slender legs. Warehouses hoist goods by block and tackle to keep weight near walls. Gondolas, asymmetrical and exact, concentrate force into a single oarlock carved like a coastline. Even words are trimmed. Kali for lanes, Ri for small canals, Sottoporteggi for passageways tunneled through buildings. Vocabulary evolved for narrowness and flow. The city's political theater also refines itself. The Doge marries the sea in an annual rite, casting a ring into the waters from the Bucentoro to declare a union that is both boast and vow. Treaties are negotiated with gifts of glass and velvet as much as with lists of cannon. Embassies pass along marble corridors, where every footfall sounds like a clause. Paperwork becomes architecture's twin. What stones bind in mass, parchments bind in meaning. Then come plagues, fires, and foreign ambitions. The Black Death cuts the population. Quarantine islands, the lazaretti, are established, inventing protocols of public health that other cities copy only after catastrophe. Fires take districts. Rebuilding rewrites them tighter to code. Empires covet the lagoon and sometimes occupy it. The Republic bends but does not break until the modern age redraws Europe with rulers and revolutions. Even then, Venice remains itself, a survivor by temperament. Walk now, in imagination, along the Zattere at dusk. The Giudecca Canal holds a slow-moving mirror of pewter. A baker's door exhales warmth. Church bells count breaths you didn't know you were holding. Across the water, windows ignite one by one like careful constellations. You are treading an engineered raft, the size of a city, a device that turns mud into ministry, commerce into ceremony, fragility into form. Somewhere below you, 5 meters down, a timber driven by a man without a name still does its. Venice answers with patience, records kept in hands, timbers logged by species and length, tides graphed on margins of prayer books. In this republic, maintenance is not drudgery, but pride. A civic chorus of small tasks performed well, so that larger catastrophes never get their cue. Habit here is architecture in motion. This is the Venetian covenant. Adapt or drown, remember or repeat. Make elegance the byproduct of necessity. The lagoon is not an enemy to defeat, but a partner to negotiate with forever. That is why Venice endures while projects grander and ambition sink from history. It chose conversation over conquest, maintenance over monument, intelligence over inertia. In the end, the wonder is not that churches glitter or palaces float, but that daily life, laundry strung over an alley, a child learning the push and feather of an oar, a mason tapping stone until the pitch is true, continues upon a platform invented 15 centuries ago. A city that should not exist teaches, simply by existing, that the human mind can braid patience into power. And when dawn breaks pale and precise over the Grand Canal, boats begin again their measured routes. The Rialto takes its first footsteps. San Marco yawns gold. The arsenal's water turns from ink to steel. Beneath it all, the piles hold. They always have. They always must. Before you leave this imagined morning, pause on a small stone bridge where 2 minor canals intersect and listen. You will hear the soft arithmetic of paddles, the whisper of linen at a window, a carpenter's mallet arguing gently with a chisel. You will see laundry mapping the wind, an old woman salting artichokes as if saving summer in a jar. This is Venice's last and greatest technology, the careful ordinary, repeated well. Cities boast of precision, but survival belongs to ritual. Pile by pile, stone by stone, day by day, Venice renews the contract it signed with the sea. That is why travelers return and residents persist, not for nostalgia alone, but to watch intelligence practice itself in public. A bell rings, a door closes, a boat noses forward, the tide reverses. The city nods, accepts the term, and goes on tar and rope precision. But survival belongs to ritual. Pile by pile, stone by stone, day by day, Venice renews the contract it signed with the sea. That is why travelers return and residents persist, not for nostalgia alone, but to watch intelligence practice itself in public. A bell rings, a door closes, a boat noses forward, the tide reverses. The city nods, accepts the term, and goes on.